I want to say thank you very much for making the effort to be with us this morning. It's great to have so many folks here. I want to recognize some of the folks that are in the audience. Our State Senator Will Brownsberger is with us. State Representative Dave Rogers. We have many members from the town governments that are with us here this morning. Belmont Fire and Police Department. The DPW has done an amazing job of making sure that these grounds are in excellent condition. The Belmont Veterans Memorial Committee have worked hard to make this a very special day. And by this, we can see the sun shining on our beautiful American flag. The POW flag is also being represented here as well. It's just a perfect day for this memorial ceremony and dedication. I want to make sure that I recognize the Boston Fire Department, Pipe and Band and Drums, the Irish American Police Officers Pipe and Drum Unit, the 6th Middlesex Regiment, which reenacts and honors the militia of the 1775 of Northern Middlesex. At the front of the memorial, please take note that we want to acknowledge the Belmont Medal of Honor recipient, Belmont's only Medal of Honor recipient. That is Lieutenant General Robert F. Foley. Please make sure you visit that monument. I also want to make sure to recognize Mrs. Pamela Curtis. She is our Belmont Gold Star mother. God bless her, and her son Jonathan. He's passed 10 years ago yesterday. I also want to recognize and thank the former members of Company E, 20th Infantry, the Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol Unit, who served in Vietnam with Sergeant Teddy Lee of Belmont, and whose name Town Field was just dedicated earlier this morning in his honor. Sergeant Edward Teddy Lee made the ultimate sacrifice while serving his second tour of duty in Vietnam. We sincerely appreciate the members of his team that are in attendance with us here this morning, and as well as his family members that are with us here today. And thank you very, very much. I would now like to invite everyone to please stand, remove your caps for the national anthem that will be performed by the Belmont High School Marauder Band. I would like to invite Pastor Bob Butler from Belmont's Open Door Baptist Church to lead us in the invocation.
Thank you, Bob. As President Kennedy said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter mere words, but to live by them, turning words to deeds. That's the reason we gather today. Many have made their tributes not in words, but in deeds, as seen in these bricks and stone. In biblical times, memorial stones were important to initiate conversation from the following generation. The stones became a living witness and helped share the vital stories of history, not to be forgotten. That is why we're here today, to allow stone to cry out and prompt our voices to pass along timeless and heroic stories. With this in mind, let us ask for divine blessing to testify to the exploits of those who served. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are grateful and thankful for the country you've shed your grace on. Thank you for those in this town that recognize those who protect our values and virtues. We ask you, Lord, to bless our veterans past and present and their families and friends. We ask, Lord, as we stand before these bricks and stone, that you would use them to prompt conversation that have been placed here on the doorstep of another generation in back of us, Lord, that we might give honor to those to whom it is due. Guide us, Lord, we pray, to serve our country in ways appropriate to further your will on earth. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
At this time, I would like to invite State Senator Will Brownsberger to come up and speak.
There's a popular song, actually kind of a love song, that has a line that goes something like, "Freedom's just another word for nothing left to do." Nothing could be further from the truth, of course. And so it is very, very important that we come together to remind ourselves that freedom is not free, and to humbly remember our debt to those few who in fact sacrificed supremely to give us a country under God with liberty and justice for all. I want to express my particular gratitude to the committee who has taken upon themselves to lift this up and remind the community again and again of the debt we owe.
Thank you very much, Senator. I would also like to invite State Representative Dave Rogers to come up for a few words.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day, a beautiful fall day to come together for such an important occasion. I want to thank also the committee. An event like this, so many people and so much time goes into making this happen. And, you know, I would echo what the pastor said, that it's deeds, not words, that matter. And that's why I'm proud that the legislature here is considered probably the finest legislature when it comes to supporting our veterans, whether it's our specialty courts, whether it's giving exemptions for those who have to go off to serve so that when they come back, they don't lose their college tuition, and in countless other ways, that the Soldiers' Home in Chelsea. And it's the very least we can do to honor those who serve. And I'm very proud to be here with all of you. And if you'll beg my indulgence on a personal note, you know, my father served in World War II as a naval officer, 3 of my uncles. One of my uncles was a ball gunner on a bomber. I said, "Uncle John, couldn't you find a better assignment?" They had to lower him underneath the plane on bombing runs to Japan. It's a pretty dangerous job. And my nephew, I was just at Quantico last May as I watched my nephew commissioned as an officer in the Marine Corps. And so it's personal to me, and again, we have a beautiful day to celebrate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Rogers. I would like to introduce Vice Chair of the Belmont Select Board, Adam Dash.
We're here as a community on this fall day to dedicate this beautiful memorial to our veterans. I want to thank the committee members who sacrificed their time to build this monument to those who sacrificed all or part of their lives for the nation. The purpose of this memorial is contained right there in the name. It's to remember. But what is memory? Memory is that spark of recognition of what has gone by, which resides in the hearts and minds of the living, thereby bringing the past into the present, reincarnating the dead into our lives. Those veterans whose names are carved in granite and brick here at Clay Pit Pond live when we speak their names, when we sit and contemplate their sacrifice in this tranquil setting, and when we speak of their service out loud, as we're doing today. All of the names on this memorial live today because we're here remembering them right now. The placing of this memorial here at Clay Pit Pond in front of Belmont High School will serve as a reminder to our youth of those human traits that we want them all to adopt: bravery, service, sacrifice, and honor. The placing of this monument is also fitting that it's located on this civic mile portion of Concord Avenue, which encompasses many of our public places, such as the high school, playing fields, the library, skating rink, swimming pool, post office, and town green. Its placement amongst such active uses, yet respectfully lowered by a meditative pond, is absolutely perfect. The prior memorial here has been greatly enhanced by this project, which makes this really a rededication brought about by the dedication of many in this town. Without the support of the residents of Belmont, this project would not have happened. It's a physical manifestation of our collective memory and our collective spirit. It exists as a place where people of all backgrounds and opinions share a common purpose: to remember and revive those who served for the benefit of us all. Really, we rededicate this memorial as we rededicate ourselves to each other. Let it guide you in thought and memory and be an example for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. At this time, I would like to welcome up Angelo Firenze, the president of the Belmont Veterans Committee. Angelo?
Good morning. We appreciate your taking the time to join us to help us celebrate the dedication of this wonderful memorial. Getting to this point was an evolution of ideas, starting with those of Bill French, who 6 years ago approached me about putting together a memorial honoring the Vietnam veterans and his classmates who gave their lives in Vietnam. Shortly after, I learned that retired Brigadier General Kevin Ryan, who was a Belmont resident at the time, saw the need to restore the World War I memorial down in front of the Lions Club. I suggested that the two of them get together and see what could be worked out to follow their individual wishes. This led to the creation of the Veterans Memorial Committee, on which the following individuals have served or are now serving. We have John Alcock, former Police Chief Ron Blanchette, Jerry DePietro, Bill French, Roger Gaudette, General Kondrak, Bill McElvoy, Brigadier General Kevin Ryan, Stephen Rosales, Mike Santoro, Alan Schreiber, the late Selectman Bill Skelly, Joe White, and Ann Woodick. The first project they undertook was the restoration of the World War I Memorial, which was done with CPA funds and was completed on time and under budget. Next, the need to recognize the veterans of all wars was discussed, and it was unanimously agreed that the Clay Pit Pond site would be ideal. The original memorial, installed more than 70 years ago, was historic in nature, with a role to commemorate in perpetuity the service and sacrifice of our citizens. This memorial is in the middle of a historic park designed by Loring Underwood. The memorial is one of several veterans memorials in town, but it is unique in a very fundamental way. It is the only one in a location suited for quiet contemplation. It included a flagpole surrounded by a stone wall and has a small plaque mounted on the stone, which was dedicated on May 10, 1940. The plaque reads, "In honor of the citizens who served the United States in war." But after 77 years, the memorial was showing its wear and tear. The wall was failing, the stones discolored, the mortar was chipping out, the site was overgrown with brush, the flagpole was old and shabby, the bronze plaque was pitted. The overall shape no longer properly honored the memories of our servicemen and women. It is our intent to guarantee that the Veterans Memorial at Clay Pit Pond continues for future generations. Our goal was to restore and enhance the site as a comprehensive Veterans Memorial that honors and remembers all of Belmont's servicemen and women. The expanded memorial at Clay Pit Pond was designed to blend into the surroundings and be incorporated as part of the town's conservation plans for a footpath around the pond. The setting is beautiful and befitting the purpose of this memorial. There were many Belmont veterans from conflicts in the last 70 years who have not yet been honored and remembered for their selfless contributions to our town and nation, but they should be. And rather than building individual monuments to each conflict, this comprehensive memorial honors all veterans, past, present, and future. The new memorial includes monument stones for each of our nation's conflicts since the founding of Belmont in 1859. These include the Civil War, the War with Spain, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Southwest Asian conflict, and the War on Terrorism. Provisions were made to add additional monuments to the memorial in case our country becomes in other conflicts. The rock walls surrounding the flag, as well as the flagpole itself, was replaced, and the paths leading to and around the site were improved. Benches are inscribed in commemorating veterans who served in the country's war, and conflicts were included. Memorials are by definition a piece of history. To this end, the memorial remembers not only veterans, but also the 122 individuals who died during conflicts. At the center of the site is a round memorial. The top disc has the town seal in the center, as well as the seals of each of the military service organizations and the names of all Belmont residents who died serving in the conflicts beginning with the Civil War. The dedication reads, "Dedicated with gratitude to those Belmont few who sacrificed their lives for the freedom of all. We wish to guarantee that their legacy and the sacrifice of all Belmont veterans be remembered and continued for future generations." We also embarked on an oral history project that is available on our website. You can access interviews with many of our veterans, as well as a list of the 1,857 veterans that are buried in Belmont cemeteries. It is our hope that visitors and students alike will be able to learn about the momentous contribution of our Belmont veterans. At the entrance of the memorial, as Bob mentioned, is a stone calling attention to Lieutenant General Robert F. Foley, U.S. Army, retired. He is the only Belmontian awarded the Medal of Honor. He graduated from Belmont High School in 1959 and from the U.S. Military Academy in 1963. In 1966, he was an infantry captain commanding an infantry company in Vietnam. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry while attacking enemy positions repeatedly, despite being wounded. I also wish to call attention to Specialist Jonathan M. Curtis. Specialist Curtis was the most recent Belmont resident killed in war. He enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2004. He served in Iraq and then deployed to Afghanistan while assigned to the 101st Airborne Division. On November 1st, 2010, Specialist Curtis was on guard duty at his unit's outpost and was killed in the ensuing struggle. His actions saved the lives of his fellow soldiers. Specialist Curtis was posthumously awarded the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. We are honored to have Specialist Curtis' mother, Pam Curtis, here to cut the ceremonial ribbon today. The project was funded by raising over $350,000 with an early donation of $100,000 from the Belmont Savings Bank Foundation, as well as $103,000 from the Community Preservation Act. Other sponsors include former Selectman Ralph Jones and the McVeigh family. Over 420 bricks and several benches were purchased from donors honoring family members. The program for today's event lists all the major sponsors, and a stone will be placed at the entrance to the memorial at the top of the hill, thanking them all. People may continue to buy tickets or make donations by making checks out to the Belmont Veterans Committee, and we're going to use those funds for maintaining and expanding the memorial as necessary. Finally, I wish to acknowledge the many veterans, colleagues, and friends of Teddy Lee, who was killed in Vietnam in 1968. Earlier today, they attended the dedication of the Sergeant Teddy E. Lee courts at Town Field. They have traveled from all over the United States to honor Teddy, a friend, their leader, their hero. We have been told the whole unit looked up to Teddy, or as they called him, Lee. Quite a tribute to a great Belmontian and Townfield kid, just one of the many great kids from Belmont. One of the things that we all learned in going through the process of planning and building this memorial are the thousands of veterans from Belmont that have unselfishly served their country so that we can live in freedom. To those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, from the Marsh family, who lost 2 of their sons in the Civil War, to Specialist Jonathan Curtis and all those in between, we dedicate this memorial. Please enjoy the Belmont Veterans Memorial as a place of quiet contemplation, for sacrifice without remembrance is meaningless.
Thank you very much, Angelo. At this time, I would like to invite the Boston Fire Department Pipe Band and Drums and the Irish American Police Officers Pipes and Drums to perform Amazing Grace. If I could invite up John Everly of LERP Team 2, who served with Teddy Lee in Vietnam, for the presentation of hats. I'd like to once again introduce the Belmont High School Marauder Band, who will play a musical selection for us. Thank you very, very much. At this time, I would like to introduce United States Marine Corps retired Colonel Michael Callanan to speak. Mike Callanan is a 1988 graduate of Belmont High School. Following his graduation from Boston College in 1992, Mike was commissioned as a second lieutenant, U.S. Marine Corps, on the USS Constitution by way of the Naval Reserve Officers Training Course at Boston University. Mike spent the subsequent 23 years on active duty. First half of his Marine career was spent primarily in the Pacific with deployments to more than a dozen countries. The second half of Mike's service was shaped entirely by the September 11th attacks in 2001. He served in the 1st Marine Division during the invasion of Iraq in 2003 and redeployed to Iraq in 2008 and commanded a Marine battalion during the surge of forces into Afghanistan in 2009. Mike retired from the Marines as a colonel and combat decorated veteran after his second Pentagon tour in 2014. Mike, Jill, and their two sons, Max and Jack, are residents of Belmont, along with Mike's mother, Peg Callanan. Mike's service followed that of his late father, Army veteran Brendan, and late grandfather, Navy veteran Vincent. Colonel Callanan.
Well, I'm still taking all of this in. It's pretty amazing. You know, it started off with a march that began out in front of the Lions Club. And for those Belmont residents, you know that that area there with the underpass to Belmont Center, you really have to have your A game when you're operating anywhere near that area. Your head's got to be on a swivel. And to think that the Belmont Police Department, the chief, was able to keep that road open and have us make it safely from there to here is a testament to the law enforcement and supporting entities here today. But really, that's what, I've got prepared my remarks here, but it's hard to know what to even say because it's really so overwhelming, what you see here. And even for someone who, largely grew up in Belmont, you don't fully understand, all the service and sacrifice that's actually been made. And, one of the reasons for that, and I think the visions that you heard Angelo describe, was the need to really put it all together in one place. The World War I monument in front of the Lions Club is beautiful. So isn't that of those killed from World War II and on in the library, and markers on the town hall. But taken individually, you don't really get the full weight of Belmont's sacrifice and the 128 names that are inscribed here today. And it's really, really quite powerful. And, I'll have to say that having been here on a number of occasions during the day, to see it at night may even be more striking. So, with that said, I'd like to, just recognize just a few, and there's been many recognitions, deservedly so, but to Mrs. Pam Curtis, I could think of no one else more appropriate to cut the ribbon shortly after I'm done speaking. Senator Brownsberger, Representative Rogers, and Secretary Urena. And to the current and former members of the Belmont Select Board, many of whom played and continue to play a key role in this monument. I'm here, representing those in uniform and those recently out of uniform to really say thank you. There's many out there, and probably more than I've ever realized, and perhaps you do too. You're all here today because you know a loved one, or you have a friend, or someone that's got a connection here, or you understand the sacrifice. You're not in either of the first two categories, but you recognize what it takes to keep us free. And that's a very high cost. The cost is always high. But what you see before us on this beautiful fall day is a testament to the character of our town. And to think that it was done in conjunction with the Belmont High School construction project and also the Clay Pit Path project are no small tasks. Very impressive. I thought to myself, who could have put all of this together? And then I looked at the list of those on the Belmont Memorial Veterans Committee, and it really reads like an all-star team of Belmont folks who know how to get the job done. And from General Ryan to Angelo and everyone on the team, well done. This is really unprecedented, and I don't think you'll see an effort like this and a recognition done in this manner in our generation. I hope you'll never have to add names to that wall, but I'd be naive to think that that won't come. But if it does, we'll all know where it's going to be, and then we'll all know, what we can do to help support that. I'd like to also thank the folks who donated, those who have loved ones or family members and have put the bricks together. Those really, along with everyone else here, guard this sacred ground. When I was a Belmont high school student in the mid-1980s, I thought I knew a little bit about history. My mom, Peg, taught me well on that, but I came across the 1940 stone inscribed as a testament and a memorial with the flagpole here to those who had been lost, and that was 1940. Little did they know, how could they have known, what lay, just in the years ahead of them. 85 or some odd % of the names inscribed here come as a result of deaths during the Second World War. Whether it was the folks lost during that time frame, the Marsh brothers in the Civil War, those that went off and marched to the war to all end wars of World War I, all of those folks, all of those from Belmont, whether they shipped out, took a train, took a horse out, wherever they mustered up, they all had plans, big plans for them, their families and friends when they came home. And those plans were never fully realized. So what we're doing here today, how we memorialize them, is absolutely tremendous. You've got James Paul White, killed during the Battle of the Bulge with 79 others from Belmont. You've got Jerry Burns, the only one listed as missing in action, presumed dead shortly thereafter, but he, along with 10 others from Belmont, were killed during the Korean War. And I got a chance to see this morning's ceremony at Town Field, and I'll tell you, that was impressive. And to see Teddy and his friends come here and memorialize and dedicate that Town Field is absolutely tremendous. I know you've come from all across the United States, and it's a testament, decades later, for that bond that you find in the military. So thank you very much. And Teddy, he had a friend, Walter Donnie Ray, also memorialized here with the others killed in Vietnam, and they were on that same state championship football team. So thanks again to all of you. Because of your efforts, their memories will never be forgotten. There will only be, each one of them is one of a kind, but they all had their stories. They all had their history not fully played out. But what we do here today helps us keep their memory alive, as much for their friends and family as it is for future generations, so that they can share their stories. And what I would ask all of you to do, above and beyond what you've already done, which is a lot, is to share what we've done here today, the dedication that's taken place. A lot of folks who are just driving by, even today, as they see this crowd assembled, probably have no idea what it is that we're doing. So if each one of you could help educate someone, whether you know them or not, that would be absolutely invaluable. For the others, keep this place squared away. And if anyone, ever comes down here, and does anything, there's going to be hell to pay, frankly. Okay? So I know you've got my back on that one. And Chief, I already will become the prime suspect in any case there. So on behalf of all of those called on to serve our nation in the future, and for those of you who will send them there, thank you. Thank you again for your role today. And I've been asked to ask one special note that's very important, and that is the recent passing of Belmont's oldest veteran, Dr. George B. McNamara, age 99, World War II vet, captain in the Medical Corps, who served valiantly in the European theater. So with that said, thank you, and Bob, I'll turn it back over to you.
At this time, I would like to acknowledge, recognize, and invite up to speak with us Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the state of Massachusetts, Francesco Urena. Francesco was sworn in as the Secretary of the Massachusetts Department of Veteran Services by Governor Charlie Baker on February 6, 2015. Secretary Urena's commitment to government service began the day after graduating high school when he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. In the span of 8 years of honorable service, his duties included diplomatic security with the Department of State at 2 American embassies, the American Embassy Damascus, Syria, and the American Embassy Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. He is a Purple Heart recipient from injuries sustained during Operation Iraqi Freedom Campaign. Secretary Urena followed his enlistment with a degree in political science from Northern Essex Community College and degree in history and legal studies from UMass Lowell. While pursuing his education, he involved himself in a series of volunteer work, which ultimately led to his role as Veteran Service Officer of the City of Lawrence and later as Commissioner of Veteran Services for the City of Boston. In 2008, Secretary Urena was honored with Veteran Service Officer of the Year, awarded by former Veteran Service Secretary Thomas G. Kelly. Through his commitment to help veterans live with dignity, honor, and independence, Secretary Urena ensures that the department and its initiatives focus on these three goals. And I will tell you that as a Veteran Service Officer, I can guarantee you that Secretary Urena does have our back as Veteran Service Officers and all of Massachusetts veterans. Secretary Urena.
Thank you very much, Belmont. And let's give Bob Upton a great round of applause for his leadership, his focus, his drive on veterans and their families here in the beautiful town of Belmont. It is a great privilege to be here. First of all, happy Veterans Month, which we are now upon. It is a time that we, as officials and leaders, travel across the state, and my punctuality brings me from another beautiful memorial just in the surrounding town of Woburn, where dedication was being held for a former prisoner of war. And today, to see the town of Belmont, the drive, veterans, Vietnam era veterans, Vietnam War veterans come from across the country to remember one of their own here, it is a special place. To Senator Brownsburg and to Representative Rogers, members of the Great and General Court, thank you and for your great partnership and your leadership focused on veterans, but focused on the citizens of this great Commonwealth. On behalf of our Governor Charlie Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito, Massachusetts is a proud home of 365,000 veterans. Many veterans who served from as far as World War II to the present through Korea, Vietnam, some in peacetime, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and so many other places that they are still in the midst of. You know, there's a saying that many veterans are familiar with. Poor is a nation who has no heroes. Shameful is one who has them and does not remember. Belmont, you are very proud to be able to recognize your heroes, your veterans, those who have fallen, those who have served. Because while this park has inscribed the names of those who have not returned, it is a place to reflect upon the brothers and sisters who served with them, who continues to set that tone. It is also a place to remember and observe. You know, the great American flag that flies behind me in front of you also flies is the prisoner of war and missing in action flag. Not just threads, not just material. It represents 83,000 Americans who since World War II are missing and have not yet returned. Think about that. We are the only nation in the world that flies in government buildings and cities and parks and throughout our country in a flag next to the American flag, focused on the missing, as a constant reminder, as a symbol of hope to the families whose loved ones are missing. I emphasize that because here in Massachusetts, 2,996 service members are part of that 83,000. Last night, 76 years later, a young 21-year-old who died in 1943, an aviator, First Lieutenant Joseph Finneran, returned back to Boston. We're very grateful for all who have and continue to search for the missing, giving these families, Gold Star families, an opportunity to have closure. And the impact of that 76 years later, some cousins, nephews, a young 70-year-old nephew was his kin. See, First Lieutenant Finneran's funeral is this upcoming weekend. But again, the impact of his return gives hope to the 2,995 here in Massachusetts whose families are still waiting for a bit of closure. Let me ask that we keep First Lieutenant Finneran in our thoughts and prayers, as this weekend you'll probably see in highlights of his service, his coming home, and his final interment in Boston. but again, the opportunity to remember. Because for those who served, if it was one of us, we too would want to come home. We too would want to be remembered in this way. But to celebrate once again this milestone here in Belmont, be very proud of how you set the example, how you remember these great service members, these great fallen warriors who, while may be gone, they are not forgotten. May God bless you. May you enjoy this great Veterans Month in an approach in anticipation of Veterans Day. May you celebrate the day with family and friends, perhaps remembering those who may not be among us, but those who served valiantly, proudly, and with honor and distinction. Great sons of Belmont, great sons of this great Commonwealth of Massachusetts. God bless you and your families. Thank you.
We will now have the ribbon cutting. I could ask everybody to remain standing for taps. Once again, I would like to invite Secretary Urena to come up and read a proclamation certificate.
From the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the Belmont Veterans Memorial Committee. On behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I am pleased to confirm upon the town of Belmont this governor's citation in recognition of the dedication of the Veterans Memorial and the perpetual remembrance of all veterans of Belmont who served from Civil War to the current war on terrorism. Signed the 2nd day of November 2019. Signed by Charles D. Baker, Governor, Karen E. Polito, Lieutenant Governor. Presented to the President of the Belmont Veterans Memorial Committee. And let me make as an aside, all the hard work, all the calls, all the, perhaps the no's that you got as you were leading up to this day, it was all worth it. Thank you. Congratulations.